Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mirrorless Minutes. We are on episode number 61, and that handsome gentleman down here in the window below me is not Mike Banning this week. We have guest Jim Nix on tonight. Mike is out with a little bit of a sinus deal. I had that sinus deal last weekend, and now Mike has got it this week. So it's cool to have Jim on. We've been wanting to get Jim on for quite a while, and just a little bit about Jim. Jim is, it's funny, I think I put in the show description, is he a traveler? Is he a photographer? Is it which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Jim seems to do it all, marries them both together with beautiful imagery, and also happens to be quite the spokesperson for the Macphun suite of software, which we'll talk about, and Jim will demo tonight. So welcome aboard, Jim Nix.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. And sorry that Mike's out. You know, I've met with Mike, or met up with Mike, and shot a couple of times. So it would have been kind of fun to have three of us chatting. But I hope it feels better. And it sucks to be feeling ill.
Yeah, it was funny. He messaged me today and said, you know, he actually messaged me a photo because I showed him a photo of what I looked like last week, and my face was swollen up. It was outrageous. And Mike sent me a matching photo of himself and said, I don't think I'm going to be on tonight. He says, the show is all yours. Take over the helm. And
Nice.
I thought, well, this is cool. You know, I've never even spoken with Jim, but I think we can make this work. So
Indeed, we can. Yeah, it's good fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, indeed, honored to have you on. You know, like I said, we've been trying to line this up, I think, for a while now, and I think Mike's really bummed out that he's not here. But
we should have an extra amount of fun.
Yeah. So let's get to know a little bit more about you, Jim. So just give us a little bit of a rundown on, you know, when you started shooting.
Yeah. So, you know, I almost hate to say it because it's almost a cliche in the photography business. And, you know, I think it's kind of obvious from my work and from seeing some of the stuff that I post that I do some HDR stuff. I used to do pretty much all HDR, but I mix it up a lot now. But I never really was a photographer, to be honest. I sort of got into it because I met Trey Ratcliffe.
Cool.
So that's the cliche that I was referring to. You know, people say that all the time. They're like, well, I ran across this guy, Trey, and saw his stuff, and I had to go do HDR. I actually met him through work. This was about 2008, I think, 2009. So his blog was, I mean, it was popular, but it wasn't anything like it is now, right? But I met him through work, and he sent me a link in an email before our first meeting, and he said, "Hey, take a look at this or whatever. This is what I do." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, you know." So I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh my God, I want to do that." And so we had a meeting, and most of the meeting was me picking his brain about explain this stuff to me. You know, I had a basic DSLR that my wife had bought me on a birthday, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what f-stop or ISO meant. Literally, I knew nothing. And then I just started taking HDR photos and figuring it out and reading stuff online. So I sort of got into it then. I mean, I, you know, had a camera here and there over my, you know, earlier part of my adult life, but I didn't know anything about it. It was all just kind of, you know, spray and pray or whatever, you know. I didn't know what I was doing. So I just sort of got into it that way. And I haven't given up. I just love it. And more than just HDR, just all aspects of it. I love post-processing. You know, I'm really into the sort of the art side of it. Mm-hmm. Like you know, I don't apologize for wanting to use bright, bold colors just because I like them.
Yep.
Or, you know, whatever. So I just, what I advise people if they ask me, and what I try to continue to tell myself, is shoot whatever you like and process it however the hell you want to process it, because it's your stuff, it's your art, so do whatever you want with it. So I try to continue to do that. So some people are like, oh, dude, turn down the colors, and some people are like, dude, I love it. So you never know.
Yep. But I'm smiling so hard as you're talking about this because I am exactly like you in that regard. You know, it's funny because I think that initially when I started shooting, you always hear, you know, get it right in the camera, get it right in the camera, you know, when you're first starting out and first kind of listening and observing, and I stumbled across some imagery from Trey, you know, early on in the game, and I thought, man, this is freaking outstanding. You know, it's a whole new world out there of photography. So I mean, my pictures back here,
beautiful.
They're not straight out of camera. You know, I love to work in post, and I'm all about contrasty, bold colors. So I can totally relate to
Virtual
your,
high five.
yeah, right. And definitely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And it's cool that that you like that style of work. You like to process that way.
I do.
And now you happen to be working in conjunction with Macphun software. I mean, what is that relationship? Are you like a brand ambassador? Do you work for them? How does this work out?
I don't work for them. So the short version is, for years I'd had people email me because, you know, on my blog I have a lot of HDR stuff, and so I used to get a lot of emails about HDR and how do you do this or how do you do that, or Jim, what did you use, and what are you using besides Photomatics, which was used to be the only HDR game in town, or at least the only one that I considered interesting to me, and still a good product. It's just that AuroraHDR came out that Trey co-made with Macphun, and I literally opened it the first time, and I never opened Photomatics again. I was blown away. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I was wanting to do videos, but I never took the time, and frankly, I wasn't that confident. I was kind of scared to make a video and say, you know, here's me talking about what I do, because I thought, who's going to want to listen to that? They're going to think I'm stupid or not knowledgeable about or whatever. And I just got over it, like you have to do when you're creating art. And I just got over it and said, the hell with it. And I just started putting a few videos using Aurora on YouTube. And then there's a Facebook group for all the Macphun enthusiasts. And so I would post the videos in there, and you know, I said, long story short, it's not that short, but the folks at Macphun said, hey, I like your videos. You're doing a really good job. Can we talk to you about something? And what the something was is that they had a new version of AuroraHDR coming out, which came out in like September of last year. And they said, we want you to record the videos that we put on our website for them. And I was like, wow, okay. Wow. So I started doing that. And literally as soon as I finished that, they said, we got another product coming. It's called Luminar, and it's going to be kind of like Lightroom. But I think you're going to like it. Here's a beta version. Start playing with it. We want you to do the videos for all the filters in there too, because we like what you do. And so, so I just started doing all that stuff. And so literally for the last, 5-6 months, I've been creating video content, you know, my own stuff for YouTube and the blog, but then they've hired me to do those things. So they're, you know, I'm on a contract basis, for lack of a better word. So cool. I use the products. I talk to them about what's happening with them, and I get pre-release copies and work on stuff and start getting familiar. And then I've just recorded a bunch of stuff, and you know, I just love it. I mean, I'm just absolutely blown away by those two products. I used their other stuff beforehand and I liked it, but I wasn't spending a lot of time. I was using Lightroom and I was using Photomatics for HDR, and then I was using some of the Nik Color Effects Pro and all that, which are great products. It's just that, you know, when Google said we're going to give Nik away for free, I was like, I got to get an alternative, because that's another way of saying we're not going to spend any money investing in it.
Yep.
And so I got nervous because I'm an old Aperture user, and I watched that thing die on the vine, and I was literally like going down with it and like, holy crap, what am I going to do? I finally went to Lightroom a few years ago, but anyway, so that was how I sort of got connected with Macphun. And now I talk to him every week now. I'm building videos and creating stuff on my own website, and then creating some stuff for them, and working on projects with them. And so it's fun, man. I just absolutely love it.
So for the people watching this now, or for the people that watch it later, that right there is it should be motivation and inspiration to do what you love to do, because you never know what's going to come of it. I mean, you said that you didn't know if anybody would be interested in watching what you were putting together, but you just decided to do it anyways, and look at where it ended up. I mean, that's totally freaking cool. I love hearing stories like that.
Thanks. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I was more surprised than anybody else was. I mean, I was like, what? You want me to do what? Like, I don't have a background creating video content. I mean, I literally started on YouTube, 9 months ago or something. Yeah. And I just had to get over my fear that, my thing is worth explaining to people, and that someone, hopefully besides my mom, is going to watch it, and by the way, she's not going to watch it because she doesn't care about post-processing. So I was like, I might get a couple of views, and I don't have a ton of views or a ton of followers, but, I hope I have an engaged audience. I get a lot of feedback, and people say, man, this is good stuff. And I don't want to just share, here's how you use the filter, but I try to talk about why I use it and come up with creative ways to use the different features in their products to do different and interesting things. And so it's what I'm trying to do. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I probably don't, but it's fun anyway.
That's awesome. It's good when people like you are giving back to the community, because that's what makes this whole thing so worth, putting all your work into, is when you know that you get one comment on a video and you're like, yep, okay, cool. I reached somebody. That's a good deal.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. Like I said, I love getting feedback. I love hearing from people, and I even sometimes they'll say, "What do you guys want to hear about?" Because
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in my office, like in the dark, basically, and kind of going, "All right, what sounds cool, or what can I do that's different, or I wonder if I could do X, Y, or Z," and I'm making stuff up, kind of, and trying to figure out if it works. So, I'll ask questions and say, "Hey, what do you want to hear about?" So I did that recently. I got a laundry list of things that I haven't gotten to yet because I already had my own laundry list, and so I'm sort of trying to integrate the two lists. And so I've got almost 50 videos now on YouTube.
Wow.
Most of it is probably I don't know, 45 of them are Macphun related.
Wow.
I think there's a couple of iPhone videos that I took like when I was traveling somewhere, just crap stuff but fun. And I think I had one Lightroom because I'm a big fan of split toning. I don't know if you ever use split toning, but I got into it like big in Lightroom. And of course, it's in AuroraHDR. It's also in Luminar. So I continue to use it and love it. But before I had those tools, I did a little video about split toning in Lightroom. But other than that,
I watched that one today before we got on.
We did.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the greatest tool, man. I love that kind of stuff.
So you were, so the split toning video, I think you said were you in Ireland in that the photo that you were working on in that?
Was it the bridge? Was it a sunrise on the bridge? Yeah, that's Dublin, Ireland. Yeah.
So that I'm just going to use that as a easy segue into the next topic here, and that's travel. So I love to travel. I can't travel enough.
Yep.
I love the whole experience. I love being in an airport. I love being on a plane. I love watching people at the airport and going to it. I love the smell of somewhere new. I love all of it.
Yep.
I don't get to do enough of it. And looking at your site, man, you've been all over the place. So how does that come about? Is that something that you've always been, been a big travel hound, or?
Yeah. So I'm an Army brat. That ought to help.
Okay. Yep.
My dad was in the service for 30 years. And so we lived in, literally every year from almost birth to 5th grade, I lived somewhere else. And one stop, I spent 2nd grade in Germany. And so my dad was supposed to have a 3-year tour there, but after about 6 months in, he got notified that he got to go to what's called the Army War College, and we were moving to Pennsylvania, and that was a big honor of some sort. I don't know a whole lot about it, but so he said, well, hey, wife and kids, we got about 5 months left in Germany. Is there anything y'all want to see? And my mom was like, we're hitting the road. So literally we went, it seemed like every weekend we were on a train or a plane going around Europe. So we went to Paris and Switzerland and London. And I mean, we went all over Germany. So at a young age, I was exposed to a lot of travel and sights, and it really opened my eyes, but I didn't really appreciate it until I got older. And then I worked forever in the technology business, and I used to, my last job in particular, I used to manage global alliances for a technology company. And so I had partners all around the globe, and I had to go see them. Darn, right? So whenever I had to go, you can't work 24/7. You got to sleep, or you don't sleep and you spend that free time taking photos, which is really what I was doing. And the company was kind enough, because I always have trouble sleeping on planes, which means I can't do it. So I'd always have to go a day or so early, and then I'd pay extra hotel to stay a day or so later, or whatever. And so I'd pick up a little free time on a weekend on either end of a trip, and I would just literally just go nonstop, gunning brackets at everything I could see all over London or wherever I was. And so that was a lot of my travel over the last few years. And then last year, my wife and my daughter and I, there's just 3 of us, and the dog. Actually, we brought the dog. Nobody believes us, but we brought the dog. We said, we want to do this crazy trip and go to Italy, and we want to go for 6 weeks. Wow. And so we figured it out. We even got on Lufthansa, because you can fly a dog in the cabin with you on Lufthansa. And we have a small dog, and if you have a dog, you know what it's like. It's like leaving a kid for, it's a piece of your heart, right? So we brought the dog. So the 4 of us, wife, daughter, me, and the dog, went to Italy, and we went for 6 weeks. And we'd go, we flew into Milan, then we went to Venice, and then Florence, and then Cinque Terre, and then Where else? We went to Rome. We went to the Amalfi Coast. I mean, we went all over the place. Oh, and then Lake Como. So, I took, I don't know, thousands of photos. And at the same time, I was like, as soon as I got home, I was like, I got to do all these videos for Macphun for Aurora. So good news is I got tons of content to work with. The bad news is I'm going to need to sleep for about a month. But so, we did that trip. And then in November, right after Thanksgiving, we took off to Paris, just my wife and daughter and I. And we did a side trip to Strasbourg, but we spent about 2 weeks in France and a few days in New York on the way home. And so these are family generated ideas and trips where, in some ways we're making up for lost time, because a lot of my travels over the last few years have been just me. So now it's been fun. My wife, daughter, and I, and sometimes the dog are hitting the road and traveling, and I'm shooting all along, right, as I go. So,
well, what's cool is on your blog, you've got all these locations where you're visiting and shooting, but you're giving them as tips, for people to go shoot, which is awesome for somebody who's traveling somewhere they've never been. It's kind of daunting, just the travel experience alone is exciting. And then to even figure out where to go to shoot. And then you've kind of taken care of that for people with a lot of locations.
Yeah. I've got 15 or 20 of those lists now. It's funny. My blog in some ways is kind of one of those list websites, and I didn't really mean it to be. It's just that in the beginning I was shooting a lot in Austin, and I was real big into the stuff here because there's a lot of cool stuff in Austin. So I'd have people like on Flickr or whatever say, "Hey, where's that?" Or where do you think I should go shoot? And I was like, I'm just gonna make a list, and it was like top 10 photo spots in Austin. But now I got like 40 something sites on my Austin list, and then same kind of thing, exactly what you said. I'm like, all right, I'm going to London. Well, it's obvious you want to go to like Big Ben and the Tower Bridge and a few things, but outside of like the 3 or 4 major, landmarks in any city, Paris or whatever, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be tons of cool stuff, but what is it? So I'd been to London a few times. I was like, you know what? If I can get 15 or 20 things, that's a list for most people. Now, if you're hyper like me, then you're going to want 40 or 50 things, but 15 or 20 things, I'm like, that's a list that could be helpful. And so I built a London list, and now you see I got New York, and by all means, I don't claim to be an expert in any place or that I know every great spot. I may know a lot of them, but I never know them all, especially in towns like London and New York. I mean, how can you sort of encapsulate that in a list? It's impossible. So, but yeah, I mean, I get actually a lot of blog traffic from that, a lot of comments and emails from people. And so it's kind of fun. It's like a side thing. I ended up actually making an ebook out of the Austin thing, the Photographer's Guide to Austin, only because I had a big list and I got all these questions, and I was like, people were telling me, you should make that into a book. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then I started doing it. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it because I don't want someone else to do it. I want to be the guy that did the Austin book, because there's already books about London and Paris and places, but New York, I'm sure. But I was like, I don't think there's an Austin book. I'm going to make it. So I made an ebook, and it's been fairly popular. It was kind of a labor of love more than anything. So
I know Mike's a big fan of that book. I know, because he visits Austin quite a bit. So yeah, I think that was one of the things I think that that led to you being here is Mike's reading of that book and cool. Reaching out and contacting you and hanging out and shooting. So
yeah, we met up twice. I guess the last time he was here was right before during December, this past December, and I was that's when we were in France, so I missed him. But on 2 of his previous visits, we met up and shot. So yeah, hopefully he'll come to town again. And if you get down here, let me know. We'll go shoot. It'd be awesome.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's kind of transition over to we talked a lot about you know what you shoot, and we kind of hinted a little bit about what style of processing you like to do.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe we could kind of go over maybe an image share. You could talk a little bit about some of the photos that you want to share.
Yeah.
And then wrap things up with maybe a little bit of a peek at Luminaire.
Yeah, sure. So I do the screen share here, application window, and I'll do these images. So can you see that?
And yep.
Okay. So I'll just run through and by all means stop me if you have any questions or whatever. So I'll just kind of be yapping here. But this is Florence, Italy. That's the Ponte Vecchio, which is I I guess Italian for old bridge, but that's their famous bridge over the River Arno that runs through the middle of town, and kind of a classic shot. And in this case, I used a 10 stop. I've got a View filter. View makes this great stuff. And I put a 10 stop on. So I don't remember exactly, but this is something like 3 minutes. And it was late afternoon. You can kind of see sort of the golden light. You know, sunset was probably 30, 45 minutes away, but that's the Ponte Vecchio. So I love this smooth kind of look there in the sky. And this was all done in Aurora HDR, even though it is a single exposure. So that's that one. And let me know if you have questions. If not, I'll click on. Can you see this one now?
Yep. Yeah, I won't do a whole lot of talking because if I talk, it takes over the screen, and I want everybody to see your work. So okay. I'll just be nodding my head a lot.
Okay. And I won't see you because all I can see is my image. So, okay. So this was a morning in Paris on our recent trip. I shot Notre Dame on a couple of previous visits to Paris, and of course it's beautiful and historic, but I was trying to do something different. And, you know, I'm always looking to find different ways to look at common subjects. I probably don't succeed a whole lot, but I try. And I think that's part of the art of it, is just get out there and keep trying, right? So this was a early morning. This is a single exposure, and I shot it at, I think, f/22. You can kind of see the starburst effect. So you know that was a pretty tight aperture. And then I edited this in Luminar, just a single exposure. It was early morning. It was kind of foggy and hazy, but it came out pretty nice. Oh, I can actually just scroll. This is handy. So back to Italy from the trip late last year in August, we were in Venice, and this was also using the View 10 stop filter. And I tell you, man, if I'm sure you do, Jamie, but anybody listening, like if you don't have a 10 stop filter, you are missing out on an incredibly fun and joyful experience. I mean, I just love that thing. Like I had the 1, the 2, and the 4 stop as well, and I experiment with those, but you put on the 10 stop and you do like a 3-minute exposure. It's just purely joyous. I don't know how else to describe it. I just love those things. So this was a single exposure. I think this was probably 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. My back was to like St. Mark's Square, and it was sunset and it was gorgeous. And I purposely, you know, focused here, and with the long exposure, of course, the gondola is blurred out, but I kind of wanted to do that to get sort of a different sort of look to it. So that was that. Okay, this is Austin. This is about a 5-minute drive from my house. I shot this one just a few weeks ago. Also a single exposure. In fact, when Mike was here on one of his visits, him and I shot here, except we shot on the other side of the highway, looking at the bridge from the other side of it. But single long exposure here. I think this is about 30 seconds at f/22, right around twilight, edited in Luminar as well. And this is a popular spot in Austin. In fact, it's, in my opinion, the best place to take photos of sunset. The sun is actually off to the right, out of frame when you're standing in this spot, but it's just a great spot because as it gets into, you know, twilight and blue hour, you get all these wonderful light trails of the passing traffic and stuff, and it's just kind of an iconic structure. So that's that. Here's another one from guess where? That's Paris. That's the back of Notre Dame. So the previous photo that I showed you, I walked about 5 minutes downstream away from Notre Dame, crossed a bridge, and then walked back up the other side. And that's where I got to this one, a little bit closer, sort of behind it. And this one, I'll actually show you this photo in Luminar, what it started out as and what I turned it into. I basically turned it into sort of a nighttime shot when it was, in fact, taken in the morning. So it's a cool trick you can do in Luminar. And in fact, I did a YouTube video about that recently. Here's a cafe in Paris. This was in Montmartre, which is a very cool part of Paris. Absolutely just beautiful area. And it's where a lot of the artists used to live. And it's kind of got that vibe. It's, I don't want to call it like a hippie vibe, but a really cool vibe. Great little cafes everywhere. We were there, as you can see, the Santa up here, kind of before Christmas. But another single exposure. I shot this one handheld, whereas everything else has been on a tripod. But single exposure handheld, and made the edits to that in Luminar. And then here you go. We mentioned AuroraHDR earlier. This is a 3-exposure HDR edited in Aurora. That's the Vatican in Rome, and also handheld. And obviously it was taken at sunset, which was a pretty incredible sunset. And the funny thing is like I don't know if you're this way, Jamie, but I always second guess my editing. I look at this photo now and I think, I should have added more contrast. I think it needs to be straightened a little bit, and should have made the sunset pop a little more. So anyway, it is what it is. It's the beauty of digital. You can go back and change it if you want, but that is a 3 exposure handheld HDR shot in Rome in August of last year. So that's that for the previews there. Did that give you a taste of kind of my feeling for photo editing?
Yeah, those were gorgeous photos. It's funny. Yeah, I think we're always our own worst critics, but
yeah,
from my end of it, I'd say don't second guess that shot. It's stunning.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
And it's funny. I wanted to ask too, but you had already answered it before I even had the chance. The gondola shot near St. Mark's Square.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had done something to those, or if it was from the long exposure. It gives it such a surreal look because the mooring posts are perfectly sharp and crisp, and they look ghostly. It's a stunning shot.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'd wanted to I wanted to try that when I was there, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get a good sunset, and that was that was the only night I had to be there. So I was like, please God, give me a decent sunset, and I got a lovely one, man. And then when I tried that shot, I just set up and sat there and got everything ready and set it. And I was like, I'm just going to let it go. I didn't set the timer. I just said, I'm going to let it go and I'll stop it when I feel like stopping it. And I think it was 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. But what I wasn't sure about is, are those posts going to move or not? Because you got the gondolas, they're tethered to them, and they're not really thrashing about, but there's a lot of traffic, which you don't see because of the long exposure, but there's a lot of traffic. The water moves a lot there. I mean, it splashes up in front of me, not big, but it's splashing up kind of by my toes. And I'm like, man, I hope those sticks stay still. But as far as to my eye, they're still. Yeah. So it worked out better than I thought it was, actually. So sometimes you get lucky, and that's a perfect example.
So you led off with and ended with images that were processed in AuroraHDR.
Yeah.
And so probably be a great time to mention this now is that through yours and Macphun's generosity, you've arranged for a license for 1 copy of that to be given away to one of the people who is either currently viewing or somebody that comes in after the show and watches this. And the way this will work is we're going to keep this open for 1 week. You have everybody 1 week a chance to get their name in there. And the way they'll do this is in the comment section below this video once it posts over on YouTube, which actually it's live, so it's posting right now. Just comment below, whatever you want to say. I was watching, I want to win. Jim, your work is great. I want to travel with Jim, or whatever. Just put a comment below so we know you were there. And then what I'm going to do is, in order of the comments chronologically, commenter number 1 will be the number 1, and so on. And then I will take all those numbers, throw them into a random number generator. And on the next show, we'll announce who won it, and we'll get that person their license for AuroraHDR. How cool is that? And thank you, Macphun, and thank you, Mr. Nix, for that.
Yeah, it's really Macphun doing it. I just had to ask, and they're very generous. So, and it's a great product. I mean, if it wasn't for Luminar, I would probably only be using AuroraHDR. It's just that I like Luminar so much, and it's kind of a shiny new toy in the toolbox. So
and I think that we might have some links after the show to some place where they can go watch some videos on how to use the software. So
I got a lot of
really well.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. So
you mentioned a shiny new toy in the toy box, and that's Luminar, the newest piece of software from Macphun.
It is, yeah. So for years, Macphun made plugins, right? They made Tonality, which is an amazing black and white editor. They had Snap Heal, which allows you to remove unwanted objects, so dust spots or people or whatever from your photos. So they had a whole suite of these things. And then they came out with AuroraHDR, which was, just an an HDR photo, a product that allows you to combine the multiple exposures and create the HDR. But on top of that, it also had a ton of filters and noise reduction and all this stuff built into it. So as I mentioned to you before, literally the first time I opened it, my jaw dropped with AuroraHDR, and I was like, oh my God, I don't need to open Photomatics anymore. So I literally quit using Photomatics the first time I opened Aurora. But I also realized I didn't need to use other plugins because of all the filters built into Aurora was so capable. So that was their next product. And then shortly, within about a year, so as of last fall, they came out with a Luminar. And Luminar is, it doesn't allow you to combine brackets, so it doesn't replace Aurora HDR, but it does have a lot of similar filters, but it has a lot of other stuff too. And it's effectively a Lightroom replacement product. Now, there's a couple things you can do in Lightroom that you can't do yet in Luminar. One of them is the actual catalog or library. It doesn't have that feature or functionality yet, but it will, as I've understood. But it does have layers, so you can easily add a texture or replace a sky. It's got noise reduction built in. It's got spot removal built in. It's got 42 or whatever filters. It's luminosity masking. It's got so much stuff. I mean, you can't even, we don't have time to talk about it all, right? So it is absolutely amazing. And I've got a ton of videos on YouTube, as well as if you go to macphun.com and look at Luminar and all the video tutorials, I've created a bunch of those. There's a ton of free stuff. So if you get the product, you can figure out how to use it pretty easily because it's intuitive. But if you have questions, check out all the videos because there's a ton of stuff out there, and it's an amazing I'm literally, I get excited. It's like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get in Luminar and do something. So it's fun.
Well, I know before we went on air, you know, you and I were talking about that. It seems like right now is the time for there's never been a better time to move away from Lightroom. I guess I'll just be blunt about it. You know, Lightroom feels like it's been stagnating for a while. It's a lot. I see a lot of people complaining just how slow it's running, you know, with each new iteration. And I think Macphun definitely timed out this release, you know, perfectly.
Yeah, I think so too.
So let's take a look at it. I know you said that you have a photo you could edit for us and show us.
I do. Let me see here. I will take this one. Let's see here. Share. Okay, do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the Luminar interface, and obviously based on time, I won't go through all of this, but so I still shoot brackets every single time I use my camera, literally, unless I'm taking a picture of my daughter, right? Nobody wants to be shot in HDR, but you know, I shoot brackets all the time. So this is the brightest of 3 exposures that I shot that morning. And this is one of the images that I showed you when I was doing the preview earlier. And it was this is actually what it looked like. So this was the brightest. I usually shoot darker. So I usually start with like -3 or -4 as my first exposure. So I might shoot a bracket set at like -4, -2, 0 for my 3 exposures. Excuse me. So this is basically the brightest of the 3, but it's actually more representative of what it looks like that morning. It was a hazy, foggy day. And it was like between 8 and 9 in the morning. I can't really remember what time, but these lights were still on. But it was morning. I'd been up, you know, out shooting since like 6 or something. But anyway, so really bright shot, way overexposed, but that's easy to fix, right? So you have a histogram here and you have a layers palette here, and then you have filters. And so if you want to add filters, you just click add filter and you come in here and you can just choose whatever you want. You can say, hey, I want color temperature. I want maybe clarity. I'll take dehaze, Jim, because it looks kind of hazy. Maybe I want some polarizing filter as well for this guy. Saturation of vibrance. They have Orton, right? So then you just populate these filters over here. And by the way, you click that button, that'll close the layers palette, and that'll close the histogram. So now you can see all your filters better. And then you just come in here and you start moving things around, trying to get the look you want. You know, this may or may not be to somebody's taste. It'll just depend on, and I'm just kind of riffing here anyway. But, you know, you can come in here and quickly take a photo. Oh, you know what else I need? I need tone. Tone's a great one. Here we go, tone. And I love smart tone. Smart tone is cool. It'll allow you, if you go to the left, if I can get my mouse to work. Here we go. Come on. I'm having a little trouble there. Hang on. There we go. It'll darken the areas that are bright, but not the dark ones. And if you go to the right to brighten it, it'll brighten the ones that are dark, but not the bright ones, if that makes any sense at all. So it's intelligent in that way. So, and then it's got Orton, which I love. So you can get these kind of dreamy effects, you know, something like that. So, and again, I'm just kind of riffing here. That's not necessarily what I do to the photo, but you can see where I was and where I am. And I mean, what was that? 15 seconds?
Wow.
So, you know, it's really powerful. You can clear it if you want to get rid of it. And there's this thing called workspace where you can come in here and you can say, oh, there's workspaces is basically, this is one I built called Magic Hour. It's just a collection of filters, right? So these magic hour, right? The magic hours that we all love, like sunrise, sunset, blue hour, twilight, whatever it may be. Magic hour is just a collection of filters that I built that I would use for those times a day. So it's not a preset. It is just a collection of filters. And so I'll go through here and make some, some adjustments here. Split color warmth is really cool. I might mess with this. And again, I don't have any idea what I'm doing because I'm just winging it here. So I'm getting a little too much on the purple there. Take this down, take that down. I'm going to go warmer here maybe. Just kind of making it up as I go because I haven't gone through these edits here. I'm kind of doing this live, but these are the filters built into this workspace. And this is the workspace that I would use if I wanted to edit a magic hour photo. So that looks pretty good. I mean, for just kind of jacking around. And there's a before and after. And so that's one of the cool things about Luminar's workspace is they're just collections of filters. It's not a preset. A preset's a collection of filters that has edits done. In other words, the sliders have been slid in a preset. In a workspace, it's just a collection of filters with no edits made to them. So if I clear that, I can show you presets. So you just click that to open presets, and it comes with a number of categories: dramatic, portrait, travel, outdoor, street, and basic. And then I've got some preset packs that I've made. This Magic Hour one's actually free. You can download that on my website. It's 8 presets. In fact, I'll just show it to you. So you can just go through and see that, maybe you want blue hour pop, number 2, and there you go. There's a preset. Or maybe you want this golden hour pop, maybe you want twilight pop. These are just presets that I made that I gave away for free on my blog. But that's that preset pack. And then I made this one based on my Paris trip. It's called A Movable Feast. And it's 33 different presets. And you can just see them here. You can just kind of go through, click one, and it'll apply. All right, that's maybe a little too purple. So let me close the preset window. Maybe I want to take that down. And you can just come in here and adjust the preset. Maybe you don't want that much cross-processing, maybe a little less saturation. You just kind of come in here and the image is processing. You can just make edits to the preset. The cool thing you can do, though, is I mentioned layers. So maybe you come in here, and I'm just kind of winging it here, if you don't mind. I'm just kind of riffing. Let's say I use this Place de Vosges. That's a preset from this Movable Feast, which is what I named that preset pack. So that doesn't look very good, but maybe you want to go add a new layer. Whoops, I just try to add another filter. Open the layers, add a new layer, add a new image layer, and I'm going to go get a texture. And here we go. Oh, it's not letting me do it in the screen share.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I could have in real life added another layer, put a texture on top, or put a preset on it, or I can just add an adjustment layer, which is what I'll have to do. And I could just go in here and add a different layer and change the saturation or whatever it is.
Yep.
So you can just start stacking layers on top of layers. I just can't get to my other files because they're not in the screen share window. So I didn't realize that. So there's a million things you can do with Luminar. It's all fun. It's really easy to use. You've even got transform, clone and stamp, the eraser tool, noise reduction, and crop tool. So you can come in here and say, I don't really care for that part of it, Jim, and I want to go a little more like that, and then you crop it. Or you choose a ratio here. You can see all these are built in. You've got Facebook cover options. That's the rule of thirds, or you got the golden ratio here if you'd rather sort of crop it based on that. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff built in. It's super easy and yet super powerful. I just love this kind of stuff. You got up here a brush, you got a gradient filter, you got a radial filter. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
I think you're getting me sold on getting out of Lightroom sooner than I was planning on.
Yeah, I mean, I have Lightroom still because I use it to manage my library.
Right.
Because Luminar doesn't have that yet. But once I started using Luminar, I don't use Lightroom anymore. The only thing that we're missing right now is the library function, and I'd say like the perspective correction, like correcting verticals. Yep. That stuff's not in Luminar yet, but I mean, I don't use that very often. That's mostly if I'm shooting with a wide angle lens, which I shot this with my 24-70, which is my kind of go-to lens on my camera. So there's just so much built into Luminar, and we're on version 1.1. So imagine when it's on version 2 or 3. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing. So this doesn't look good because it looks overexposed, but like I said, there's a million filters in here. You can come in here and add, and you know, you can just come in here and say, all right, I want to make it, maybe I want to make it grainy, right? Golden hour, but grainy. So there's a golden hour filter. You want to take the exposure down. Maybe you want to add some grain. You know, it's a little too dark. Brighten that up a little bit. Give that a second. But you can see the grain coming in.
Yep.
And you got a little bit of a film look. You could go in here. It's got split toning, which is right there. You can play with that. And if you want to remove a filter, you just remove it like that. If you want to play with the curves tool, it's right here. So you can just play with the curves and do your, you know, your S curve. If you're, well, I can't get my mouse to work. I'm having some problems with this mouse on this Mac. I tell you, I don't know what it is, but I need to work on settings. Anyway, if I could get the mouse to work, you would know that the curve tool, there you go. Whoops, a little too much there, a little less there. You know how it works, right? You use a curve tool. So something like that. And, you know, pretty cool looking look. And I'm just kind of screwing around a little bit. But that looks pretty good. I mean, again, considering where we started.
Right.
So, and as I said, I'm just kind of riffing. Like I didn't plan a particular edit for this photo. I'm just kind of jacking around. And you can see I've come up with 3 different looks already in just a couple of minutes. So easy and fun, man.
I like the interface. It's really clean. You know, there's not a whole lot going on. It's just what you need to work with. And there's, you know, and then if you need more, then you just start adding more to it. It's not like you're stuck with everything there all the time.
Yep, exactly. And you can change opacity on any layer. You can change opacity of a preset. So if you look over here at these presets, if you want to choose that one, you can then say, oh, I want to reduce the opacity. It's too much or whatever, right? So you can do that. And I just applied that preset, which doesn't look very good, but actually it kind of looks like a vintage kind of old-fashioned photo. So, but you can change the opacity here. You've also got blend modes. So you can change the blend mode for that layer. You can also go in here to these individual filters and change the blend mode just on the filter. So, I mean, there's so much you can do. I mean, really, like I said, we don't have time to cover it all. You can, instead of adding a new layer to do a mask, you could just filter mask. So you just click on the filter, click on the brush, and then you click on the filter, and then you can just go paint in just the filter edits that you made on that particular filter on this same layer. And you can do that with multiple filters on the same layer. I mean, it's crazy how cool this thing is.
Yeah, holy smokes.
You can see why I get fired up.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah, it's fun. So I love it. I mean, that's why I spend so much time working on videos for them, because I just love the product. I think more people should know about it and use it. And I'm just passionate about it. I mean, I just absolutely adore this thing. So I spend a lot of time with it.
Well, hopefully after watching this, people are going to swing over to your YouTube channel and over to Macphun and check out the videos for this, because it's a really cool looking alternative to Lightroom. Lightroom really feels last century now after looking at that.
Yeah, it's funny now. It's like when I go into Lightroom, if I got to do something, I'm kind of like, you know, what the hell? What? You know, it's so like foreign to me. You know, I mean, the other thing too is like, because you can create those custom workspaces, some people just, maybe they like the flow of how the different editing tools exist in Lightroom. You could just go mimic that in Luminar and just create a Lightroom workspace.
Right.
I don't do that because once I started using Luminar, I kind of realized I don't really like the Lightroom interface that much. Yeah. So I didn't want to mimic the tools because I like them better. I want to add them and delete them from individual photos based on the need at the time. But that's the power of it. It's super flexible and powerful. So
I love having the custom workspace option. That's super cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, you can also export those workspaces and share them. So you can say, man, I love to use these 9 filters on my landscapes. I think other people would like to use it too. I did that with that Magic Hour. I made a free preset pack and that workspace, and I just gave it all away on my blog. Just that's cool. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of the Macphun users have been really super supportive of my work. So, you know, it's the least I could do. I mean, gosh. But
that's awesome.
Fun to share anyway. So,
well, I think we're probably going to wrap up. We're at about the 45-minute mark, and it was super cool to have you on. I need to get to Austin now just to hang out and shoot with you.
Yeah, we got to do it, man. Or I need to get over to Western Michigan. I've been there, but it's been a really long time.
Yeah, Western Michigan's great. I'm not going to. What's that?
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I went to Grand Rapids years ago, and I had a buddy from Muskegon
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where that is. But you know, I haven't really spent any time there. So I hear it's pretty though.
Yep. Now, if you're gonna come, you want to do it in the summer though.
Yeah.
You don't want to be here in the winter necessarily.
Yeah. I lived in Ohio years ago, and for my job, I traveled to Detroit like every other week.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, you know, even in the winter, and I was like, oh my God, it's so cold. Because I'm an Army brat. I'm not really from anywhere, but I moved to Texas in the middle of 5th grade. And so I've been in Texas since I was, you know, however old you are in 5th grade. What's that, 10 or something? So 12 or whatever. So yeah, I was cold up there. I was very cold. It's all right. It's all good. So, okay.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jim. It's been awesome to have you. And I'm so glad that you brought the Macphun with you. It's definitely, it looks like a game changer software to me. It really does. It's
really awesome. I mean, and the worst case is you can, you know, if you don't win, well, I guess that's Aurora we're giving away. But if you're interested in Luminar, go to their website. They've got a free trial download. You can find links on my blog or on their website or whatever. You can also, I've got a coupon code, just my name, Jim Nix, and it saves you $10. That's an idea, but try the download for 30 days and try it out. And I mean, it's, you know, you can't beat free for 30 days. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, but hey, try it, then you'll know. So I was convinced after first using it for just a few minutes, I was like, this is going to be a game changer, literally. And I think it's gonna, as they continue to innovate, like I said, they're in version 1.1 or 1.2. I just think this thing is going to get even more crazy awesome. And it's already, I think, the best thing out there, but I'm a little biased. But.
Yep. I can see why though. I can see why. It's definitely something to be excited about. So
pretty awesome stuff. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to have you on again. We definitely got to have you on again when Mike's around. I'm sure Mike's probably watching the show right now, missing out. So, but hopefully it gets better soon. And thanks again, Jim, and tell everybody at Macphun that Mike and I said a humongous thank you for doing this giveaway. It's really cool. I'm excited to do this. So
awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure they're happy to do it. So we'll be talking again, sir. And I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I had a good time.
Without a doubt. Take care.
Okay. Adios. See ya.